Greetings. I'll be going over a dungeon crawl map and adventure. You can easily drop into any role-playing game campaign you have. This specifically is for the Forbidden Lands game, which I discovered within the last year, and it has fast become one of my favorites. There's the dungeon there, and it is called the Tomb of the Mad King Fallmier. And I'll just kind of go over it here and explain a little bit as to why the characters might be here and what they're looking for and that sort of thing as we go along. This first room here is the entrance to this particular tomb. The Mad King Fallmier actually wasn't a king at all, but he styled himself a king in his own mind, I guess. He kind of goes insane and causes all kinds of problems for people. It's set to be about 350 years deserted or lost. So yeah, we'll go over that here shortly with the details. But at any rate, the characters will approach through a cave system that other adventurers discover. They find a small stream and a waterfall drops into the actual cave here, or tomb rather. So the background basically is recently discovered by treasure hunters from Farhaven, which is a city in my Forbidden Lands campaign on the East Coast. And they found out about this tomb, discovered, lots of information, took notes and journals, did their study and prepped, and tracked it down. You can drop it in anywhere in the map, on the map in Forbidden Lands. I've dropped this near Lake Varda, just to the south and east, because a lot of it has been flooded, and that's kind of a marsh region with lots of water. So that's why I have it there. A group of 4 adventurers and treasure hunters did their research and entered this particular tomb and were quickly defeated. Only one survived, and he escaped just barely, and he was the historian or archaeologist, and that's who the characters will somehow be connected to. It's up to you to figure out how to do that. But this particular guy, his name is Muldaney. He is a human male. However you want to connect him to the PCs is fine, but his thing is he's happy to let the PCs have the information regarding the tomb and all of his notes and stuff, if the characters are able to successfully search it and check it out and survive. He wants as payment the valuable paintings that might be found within. Supposedly, or rumor, or the history shows that Falmir's wife, Gwyneth, was an accomplished artist, and there were lots of paintings supposedly buried here as well. So that's his payment. If the characters can get that, they can have the rest. You might also drop in a legend. Forbidden Lands has legends available. And I have decided to drop in the Nightwalker's Hourglass legend. That item may be here as well. And I like to, instead of use an info dump at the beginning of the adventure, you can kind of give them a brief synopsis, kind of like I've done here. Just 3 to 4 minutes of why your characters might be there, and then you could easily jump in, which makes this a good one-shot type of adventure. But the journal or the notes or the study that Muldaney accomplished can be given to the characters, and then you can, as the game master, give them the tidbits of information as they make it through, the various rooms, and as they come across things. Okay, well, your characters would know this because the journal says X, Y, or Z, or whatever. So that's just another idea. So room number 7 is the first place they come into. Entry into the tomb, the cavern or the dungeon via the waterfall. It's very difficult to climb. They will need some kind of equipment or ability to traverse this, certainly to escape and get back out once everything is complete. There'll be running water and it's wet. The pool at the bottom is 20 feet deep, and so The water, the wetness makes it difficult. Run that however you like. It shouldn't be impossible to actually start the game. So just have fun with it and let them know that metal armor may be a problem here as they come across some of this stuff because it weighs you down quite a bit. So there's the pool at the bottom doesn't necessarily flow into the room. It flows underground, so that way the characters will have dry spaces to walk in throughout this dungeon. So there are 9 total coffins in this room. 3 of them have already been opened, and the 3 skeletons here are actually restless dead, set to guard the entrance to this tomb. There's a placard or a stone carved sign here right by this large pit that says King Fallmier's resting place, pay with blood. The characters may or may not know this, it's up to you, but they supposedly, Fallmier is requiring anyone who comes to visit this tomb has to make a payment or they will be attacked by the guardians. Could be all 9 or however many, depending on the size of your party or the difficulty you want to throw here. But if you pay with blood, whether you sacrifice, cut your hand, or throw a living creature down this pit, that's the only way that these skeletal guardians will leave you alone. The Restless Dead info and the GM's guide for Forbidden Lands, the skeletons are on page 122, and I'm just going to use their stats there. And let's move up to room 6. Okay. Room 6 is completely underwater. The water starts here, and then the stairwell goes down, and the ceiling also comes down to meet the water right there at the dotted line. And you can have lighting in here by weird fungus or vines or minerals within the rock, however you want to do it, or you could have it completely dark. It's up to you. But on the bottom of this particular room, this one is severely damaged by time and by the cave-ins and the flooding. So there are about 100 or so coffins just all along the bottom of the floor here. And these are soldiers that Fallmier had sacrificed and killed and buried with him so he could have a good following or support in the afterlife. And so a lot of these could be undead, restless undead, and they might be trapped, if the coffins are dumped over on their side, or maybe there's rubble trapping them. The characters might be able to see, hey, there's a lot of potential threat here. If they go down and poke the sleeping bear, if they go down and start, messing around with these guys, their weapons are going to be very, rotted and rusted and deteriorated because of being underwater for a couple 100 years. More than likely, they would just try to drown the characters rather than fight them with a sword or whatever. But this is also a place where the GM can throw in, wandering monsters. This is very undead focused. So if you want to drop that kind of thing in here on your characters, if they start resting for a quarter day or taking too long, or maybe they do something later on that enrages the Mad King, so to speak, this could be a place you could draw enemies from. So really, this is to provide an ambience and a threat and a danger, and kind of let the characters know that this is not necessarily a safe place to be. Okay, so underwater all the way to here, where the ceiling rises up again, and the characters can swim and catch their breath. And it's up to you if you want to mess with, how far these rooms are separated. It doesn't have to be to scale. You could have several hundred feet here instead of just right around the corner. This is kind of abstract, but make it what you want. And also, again, metal armor is going to be a problem as you swim this way up. You'd have to swim under here because the characters won't know just how far they need to go, which is always a little threatening. So let's look at room 5, which is off to the left here. This is Gwyneth, her banquet hall. Fallmier set up a banquet hall, certainly as punishment to her and their family. He was betrayed by her, or so he believes, and so he had her killed and their kids. He went totally mad. Now, if your campaign is not dark and it's more of a lighter tone, then you don't have to put kids in here at this dining table. It would be their corpses, their skeletons. You can, adjust that as you need to your party and your game and how you run it. But I have it listed as, this is the Murdered Family Banquet Hall, the table for 6. There are 5 bodies here. The queen, Gwyneth, she's the only restless dead. Her spirit is anchored to her corpse. The other four are the children. Ages are whatever you want them to be, but they are not restless dead, so we don't have to deal with that. There are also two skeletons up here. Those are servants that were sacrificed, and they're just corpses, nothing special. This room is set up as a role-play encounter room, and potentially some traps and maybe some loot in these 4 chests. They are all locked, high-quality locks with traps that can be deadly, or at least resource depleting. So set that to the difficulty you would like. Within the chests, I did some random treasure generating. I used those random generating tools in the back of the GM's guide for what I have here. I did add a couple of things. One of them is a demon bone dagger, which gives a D10 artifact dice if the dagger is used against demons. It's very similar to a longsword that's in one of the Forbidden Lands adventure modules, one of the smaller books. So that may come in handy later. You also could throw in the paintings here. This is what Muldaney is after. However, all of the paintings that are here have been damaged in some fashion, whether they've been cut or slashed, or paint was thrown all over them. So they're not pristine. The Mad King was enraged at her, and so he destroyed all of her works. But Muldaney would still take that as a piece of history and as a collection. Now, it'll be difficult to get paintings back through the water, so your characters have to figure out how to do that in hopes to keep them dry. So let them get creative there. Let's see. The thing that the roleplay piece of this would be the queen, Gwyneth. She is just inconsolable. She is weeping and moaning and crying. The characters could hear this as soon as they come out of the water, certainly. And they will know that something has obviously made her very distraught. It's very difficult to speak with her. She will not, be an easy conversation to have. Over and over and over, she will talk about her one true love. She wants to be reunited with her one true love. She has to find her one true love, and then her poor babies, her poor children. She's inconsolable. Will cry about those endlessly, and she has for 300 some odd years now. Her corpse is the anchor to her spirit, so she's not aggressive. She won't go anywhere. She can't. She's stuck here. That's part of King Fallmir's curse. She does mention between all of her sobbing and crying and moaning that if somehow her true love could be brought to her, she would be free from this curse. This whole tomb would be freed from the curse. So her corpse is, just a skeleton there at the table. All of the other skeletons are also at the table except for the 2 servants. And she is wearing, formal wear, and her dress was, kind of rotting because it's been here for a while. It's very deteriorated, but you can tell the color is a light blue. It once was a very nice dress. And we'll remember that for another room here in a second. So, moving on up. Sorry about that. Moving on up to the next room. Room number 2. Let's see. You can get to this room here. This is the main room for King Fallmier. This is his burial site, and it's very nice. It's not quite as damaged as the rest of the place. The stairs lead up to kind of an altar. These 4 pillars run up all the way to the vaulted ceiling, and in the center is an oversized, very heavy coffin. And it's set kind of like a case that goes over it, and it's one solid piece of heavy stone. Maybe granite or something very difficult to mess with. Within this tomb is King Fallmir's remains. He is in ceremonial armor, has a two-handed sword across his chest, and he's wearing a very large, he's wearing a gold ring with a very large diamond, worth about 25 gold. And in Forbidden Lands, that is a fortune. That is very valuable. However, there are no traps in here. Fallmier was odd enough, mad enough, insane enough that he ordered his place to be built unmarred and untainted by traps or guardians. The rest of the place is the guardian, or so he thought. And the characters will probably be wondering what's going to try and kill us in this room. And it's the irony is nothing. But the difficult part will be removing the lid or the cover to this coffin. Nearly impossible. Let the characters get creative to do it. They're just not going to lift it. Even with, if they had 3 or 4 or 5 people, it's incredibly difficult to lift. They'll have to use some other kind of means, figure out a new way to get in there if they want to rob that tomb. But make sure they do know that this is labeled. It's King Fallmier's tomb. Maybe there's an inscription on it or somewhere around on these pillars. So let's keep moving forward here. I'm gonna set this up. There we go. Okay, the next room, we'll run this way. There's 3 potential rooms, room 1, 3, and 4, and I worked backwards this time, starting at 7. I usually don't do that, but I did this time. In room 1, that's where our demon is, kind of the large fight at the end of everything, the demon that's responsible for the Mad King and everything like that. If the characters head down this direction, this room will be deserted. The demon will be hiding. Let some other things unfold before the demon starts to come out and encounter the characters. So this will be the last encounter. If the characters make it here, maybe it could be pitch black or dark. If they decide to make it down to the shore and start searching things, you can decide if you want to put treasure there or not, or let the treasure be deep underwater. But this is where the Night Walker's hourglass will be. If you so choose to put that legendary item into the game. But either way, these are the other rooms. They'll find more information and come across more encounters before the final boss here. So let's look at room number 4. This is the trophy room of King Fallmier. Enemies of King Fallmier are held here in eternal curse. There are 3 individuals. 2 of them are observed. They're, skeletal, spirit, restless, undead, trapped. They're chained up to these 2 large, each of them have 2 large pillars where they are held and bound, unable to free themselves. They are here as trophies of King Fallmier. This one here is the father of King Fallmier, kind of a morbid deal, but basically this is Dolnik, and there's a placard that reads, "Beloved Father." Dolnik, the dad, Fallmier basically has lots of daddy issues, or he did in life. He wasn't a great person, Fallmier, and his father saw it and was very brutally honest with Fallmier throughout his life. And Fallmier eventually had the means and the motive and got rid of his dad and sent him here to be cursed for eternity, or at least had that done. So the father here, however, has an interesting curse placed on him. He can only tell 2 true things to the characters if he is asked. That's Fallmier's demented sort of punishment. This character, or this individual, is also a restless undead. He is a noble from the time when Fallmier was alive. His name is Baelish Coppington, and also it's labeled, it says Lord Coppington on one of these pillars. He was a noble that was a rival against Fallmier in life and made him look the fool many times during his encounters with Fallmier. And so Fallmier eventually had him killed as well. And he is cursed to only tell 2 lies to the characters if asked. The third person, Restless Undead, is stuck down here in the bottom. The cave-in caused some damage down here in the pool, this murky, dark water. She had, her name is Rayness. There is no placard or anything like that here because it was damaged, and let the characters search for it and figure out a way to free her. Maybe she's trapped by one of the pillars, or they have to bring her out to question her. That sort of thing. She has an interesting piece of the curse, and that is she has a time limit where the characters can speak freely with her. and it's 2 minutes. You could literally set it up in real time, at the game table. Start a timer for 2 minutes, and you can talk as fast as you can. Make it be one of those things where the characters need to get their ducks in a row before they start hitting the start button, so to speak. She, in life, had the misfortune of being Fallmir's childhood crush, and so he had her killed because she broke his heart when he was a younger teen or whatnot. So basically, this is kind of a role play / puzzle room. Allow the characters to enter. They know quite a bit about what's going on here at this dungeon, at this tomb. They know about the leech demon in Area 1, so that might be something they ask about. They won't be forthcoming. You'll have to figure this out from them. They know that Fallmir's soul is trapped using the Bind Soul spell in Forbidden Lands, and that object that his soul is in is also obtained or held by the leech demon in Area 1. This feeds life to the demon. They can hear the cries of Fallmir, his lament and his confessions and his remorse about what he did in life and how he was. His desire is to find rest, but more importantly, his desire is for forgiveness. If only he could go back in time. That's the kind of things that they hear Fallmir lamenting, via the magic and the curse of this tomb. They also know that bothers the demon. The demon, it doesn't feed as well off of lament and sorrow and actual repentance. The demon feeds off of chaos and madness and insanity, which is kind of gone now because Fallmir is dead. So those are things that these individuals know. They know the leech demon has a powerful artifact that once belonged to Fallmir, which apparently Fallmir should have used, but now it's way too late. And that's referring to the Nightwalker's hourglass. So how this encounter puzzle room starts is when the PCs enter the room, they will be able to see these two. Again, lighting is dependent on how you want to run that. Once they see these two, maybe they're glowing or maybe they off-put a ghostly light. That's up to you how you'd like to do it. But they all three say, now they won't see the third down here, but they will definitely hear a third ghostly voice echo through the room, so that can indicate to them, hey, there's another, individual in here. Let's find them. Be wise with your words and gain knowledge. Speak foolishly and pay with blood. Our curse demands we speak 2 truths and 2 lies, and another freely, but only for a time. Speak with each of us in turn, learn as you desire, but be warned, the curse upon us is strong, and will swallow you as well if you enrage the Mad King. So this is where the journal would come into play. What do the characters know about the dad, the rival, or does it have anything to do with the young childhood crush? Or does it, what kind of things might the journal tell them that can point them to solutions here? It'll also talk a little bit about the true love, but what do they know about the true love that the wife in here in 5 is asking about? That's up to you, but I don't have them knowing anything there. They have to figure that out through other means. But hey, allow this to be an information spot and a puzzle, and let them know that they can gain information that's valuable here. But also, if they start to take advantage, give them a clue that monsters, undead, are coming. You don't get to take advantage. You don't get to metagame this type of a thing. We're playing a role-playing game at a table, and this is a neat puzzle encounter and story. And so make that work. And if they start to threaten, maybe they start to summon or whatever soldiers that are stuck here and now are free to come after the characters. So allow that to happen, and then give them a time limit. Don't let them spend a year, in game here, which sometimes happens. Okay, so let's look at this next room here. This would be room 3, right off of the main chamber. Room 3 is a treasure room and a combat encounter room. There's a Death Knight that stands guard. He is at the ready. This Death Knight has a couple of interesting facets to him that the characters will notice. Firstly, he is missing the lower half of his jaw. He is unable to speak. His skeleton face only comes down to his top, just below the nose, right at his teeth. He is missing everything else below that. He is unable to speak because in life, King Fallmier had that removed violently. So he is unable to speak. He's a mute Death Knight. The second thing that the characters will notice is that around his sword hilt, there is a piece of cloth, a silk strip of, or maybe it's a scarf, a strip of cloth that somehow is wrapped around his hilt, and it is the same light blue color that belongs to our cursed Queen Gwyneth, the same color of her dress. And so that's an indicator that the one true love she's talking about is most certainly not Fallmier. It is this guy. And so that might be a way to avoid combat. It is the only way to avoid combat in this room, unless they just don't enter it. So I have a combat room, but it has a question mark behind combat. So it allows the characters a way to get out of it if they so choose and if they do some digging. So that's the thing about this Death Knight. I do not have a name for him. He is unnamed. Only the one true love is what he is known as. So when the characters approach, he comes to life, so to speak. He's standing guard, but then starts to, take action. He shakes his head no, holds his hand like, halt, holds his hand as if to say, stop, and then points his sword at the characters and motions back up the stairs. He's basically saying, do not come in here. You turn around and go the other way, because that's part of his curse. He is not to allow anyone to come here. The Death Knight stats in Forbidden Lands are on page 86 of the GM's Guide. He will fight once the characters enter this room. This is the treasure room, the eclectic treasure of Fallmier. So have all kinds of weird stuff in here, along with randomly generated treasure or whatever you decide to put in here. I used the tables and rolled for quite a bit. I did add some things that point to the insanity of Fallmier, like crazy writings in journals or books or letters, that kind of thing. You could also have some broken painting materials. Obviously, he was betrayed by his wife and this one true love, Death Knight, and that enraged him, and so he broke all of her painting materials, which could be a bonus if the characters decide to take that back to Muldaney. I could see that being one of those extra things, like, hey, here's also what we found. Here's some more to the story, History, items, collectibles with a story would be valuable to Muldaney. So the other thing you might put in here that might be interesting is broken musical instruments, because that is a weakness of the demon, and the leech demon requires a host. And when the leech demon's host was Fallmier in life, which drove him completely insane, that's one of the weaknesses of that demon. The music, the melodies, he takes damage and has to run away from it. And so maybe there's some broken musical instruments here, or potentially you could put an instrument in here as something the characters could use in the final fight at the end. But that's up to you. The only way to avoid combat here, besides turning around and leaving, would be if the characters are able to communicate with the Death Knight and tell him and convince him, hey, I know where your one true love is. If you follow me, I will take you to her. And then get the Death Knight to follow all the way back to the banquet room. And if that happens, they can find rest in death. And that ends the curse for these two, the Death Knight and Queen Gwyneth. It ends the curse, and they will die. They will peacefully, basically just end right there. And that takes them out of the game. But that's up to the characters if they decide to do that. Let's see. And you can set up traps for any of these items if you so choose. The Death Knight is a definite difficult fight, very, very deadly in the game. So that's up to you. The last room is room number 1. This is where the Leech Demon is. The Leech Demon is about the size of a dog or a wolf, a large dog. And it looks like an overgrown leech, just disgusting. And it has a host right now of a kind of a crab creature, a large crab-like creature that lives under the water, and it has to fight the characters will have to fight this guy. There's no demon. There's not going to be any negotiations with this demon. He's ready to find a new host. He would happily take over one of the characters, and use that person as a host and cause all kinds of problems in the future. The leech demon basically once infected the Mad King. It drove him completely insane, and once the Mad King was about to die, just before he died, the demon was able to use the bind soul spell and trap Fallmir's soul in the orb that the demon carries. He could carry it in like some pincers, or the crab-like pincers that it has. It would hold it, and it's just constantly fiddling with it, just constantly holding it. So it's a very smooth orb, and that's what gives the demon the essence. The soul is within the orb, and so the characters can handle that, and you can role play that if they want to. If you can allow them to communicate with Fallmir, destroying the orb kills Fallmir, obviously, but allowing him to die fully would end the curse on everyone else as well, because he does have remorse and lament, and he is sorrowful for everything he did in life. And so that's how I have it written. However, you could be different. You might want Fallmir to jealously, see life and want to come back and make a deal with the characters, and maybe he would continue on his mad reign of terror if given the opportunity. But that's up to you, whatever sounds fun and whatever the tone is of your campaign. So the physical description of this leech and this crab, the combat can happen up the stairs and the shore, or maybe it chases the characters out, or maybe it comes out to meet them after all this time spent in the other areas. They will have to defeat the crab creature first, which I generated my own stats for. You can come up with whatever stats you like, depending on the difficulty you want to throw here. And then they'll be able to fight the leech demon once the crab is killed. The demon can kind of change size and shape, and it's real slimy and slippery, and can attach to a host and then hide itself on its body. And that's exactly what it's done here with this crab. So one thing that I have is that it kind of communicates telepathically, and so it'll just constantly be gibbering in the characters' minds, and it'll attack by a tentacle. The leech demon itself. It'll use a tentacle attack, which will turn into a grapple, which will then do damage, as well as attack with a puppeteer spell, power level 3, which is kind of like a dominate spell where it takes over that person's will, and that's its goal. It wants a new good host, and so there's the end of the rooms and the adventure. And once they search and check the area out, I have the Nightwalker's hourglass on one of these shores. If the characters get here first, before they find out other things, the demon might be hiding, and maybe the Nightwalker's hourglass would be hidden below the water and not come to light until later. So yeah, there's the adventure. I drew this not too long ago and came up with everything mostly out of my own mind, but certainly using the random generation tables as well. It was a ton of fun to come up with, and I look forward to taking our characters on this adventure. So yeah, have fun with that one.